So, hello everybody and welcome. Yes, welcome and welcome back here at BSN Network. Today we'll be back here at BSN Arc. This is the BSN Arc podcast here today. It is Wednesday, August 12th. Hope everybody's having a good day so far and a good rest of their day yesterday. I know I did. It is Wednesday. We're halfway through the week, which is good. Almost a weekend, almost Saturday and Sunday, which is nice. We got Thursday and Friday, and then we'll be rolling right into the weekend. So it is very, very, very good. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far. We got a lot of sports to talk about, like always. We got Alvin Kamara and the Saints. So Alvin Kamara said last season, or he actually came out publicly yesterday and said that last season he was battling an injury all through the year, and that's why he did not play well. He actually tore his MCL, which is his knee. He tore his MCL, and MCL I think is a little bit different than the ACL, or maybe it's the same thing, I'm not sure, but he tore his MCL, and it was bad. He said he was playing with an injury all season long, so it kind of means that, like, that's why he was so bad, because he couldn't do much with a torn MCL. So the release is out with that. Now, I will tell you this. If you would have told me he was playing with an injury, I would have believed you, because of how bad he was playing last year. That was one of his worst years of his career. I mean, he was unbelievably bad. I mean, it was like night and day. It was literally night and day. Like literally completely two opposite seasons from the year before that. It was a bad season. He did not do well at all. He did not help one bit with that Saints team. They were not getting him involved in the running game. They barely did anything with him. He was injured, picked him up in fantasy, did absolutely nothing. So we'll talk about him. And if he'll have a bounce back year, that's one of the big topics now going around these past 24 hours is, will Alvin Kamara have a bounce back year? What's going to happen? He's going to have a bounce back year. Is he going to be injury prone? Is his final couple of, is he going to be injury prone his rest of his career? What's going to happen to Alvin Kamara? We'll talk about that. Then we got the Pac-12 cancels college football and sports. We're just going to talk a little bit sports in general, like just sports going to be able to play, stuff like that. Pac-12 cancels. Not surprised. But college football is still going to be played. Big 12 said they're going to play. ACC said they're going to play. And the SEC said they're going to play. So college football is going to play. It's just a matter of shutting down. A matter of, are they going to finish? It's a matter of, what are going to be health protocols? What's going to be the deal? I mean, there's really no backing down now. I mean, the college football is going to play. It's probably going to be three Power 5 divisions. Big 12, Pac-12, or Big 12. The two divisions that have backed out so far, only two. Big 10, the two Power 5, Big 10 and Pac-12. You still have SEC, ACC, couple teams here and there, or a couple divisions, Big 12. Those divisions will be playing. They said they will be. They said they have no plans on canceling the season. Big 12 2 days ago said that they were, and now all of a sudden they're not. So it really can switch, I guess, however things go. From what I'm hearing is the testing protocols, the virus cases, have been very, very, very good for the universities that are at training right now. They're training right now, people. Like, you don't realize, like, they are training. Like, they are doing training camp right now, getting ready for the season. The cases have been very good. I haven't heard of any, like, spiking cases at all. The cases have been very, very good. I've heard Miami, since I follow, Miami's doing very, very well. So I'm assuming, and Miami's in the ACC. Maybe the Big Ten struggled and they cancel. Whatever, we'll get into it. We got the Yankees, Mets, Nets, and Islanders, and that hockey game last night. I don't know if any of you guys saw it. So I was watching the Yankees game. I was watching the hockey game before the Yankees game. It was the Lightning versus the Blue Jackets. So I was watching it, right? And the game started at like 3 o'clock. So I was watching. I was like, okay, this should take me right up until like the Yankees game at 7, right? Because it ends 5:36-ish. I was like, okay, this should take me right up until the Yankees game at 7. This is perfect. I was like this. I was watching the game. I was like, okay. So, like 3 periods were done. It was a tie game, first overtime. I was all right, this is actually even perfect. This should be done. The Yankees game should be up in like 15 minutes. Then overtime 1 was done, and they were over. So I was like, all right, I'll watch slightly overtime 2 if they score a goal. Overtime 2 wasn't done. I switched to the Yankees game, and I ended up switching to the Yankees game after overtime 1. And all of a sudden, here we go. You got yourself overtime. What are they? Overtime 6. They were in 6 overtimes or 5 overtimes. I think they were in 5 overtimes. 5 or 6 overtimes. 5 overtimes. And there was 85 saves by the Blue Jackets goaltender. Broken NHL playoff record. 85 saves. 88 shots on goal. He allowed 3 goals, right? Yeah, because it was 2-2, then 3-2, yeah. And the Lightning won. They had to postpone the Carolina Hurricanes versus the Pittsburgh Penguins game for 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the morning. They had to postpone that so then because they were supposed to play at 8:30, but the game was still going on. The game didn't end until like 9:30. That was like a 6-hour game. It was unbelievable. It was crazy. It was one of the most craziest hockey games I've seen. During the Yankee game, I switched it back on just for one commercial break, and then I switched it back off to see the Yankee game again. But it was just crazy. I mean, the players were so tired. You could tell. Like, they were just ice skating. Like, they were so tired. So anyway, that's it. That is a long intro. I don't like long intros, but I do sometimes get blabbing a little bit. So with that being all said, this is the BSN podcast. So healthy Alvin Kamara says he's not concerned about Saints' contract. So that is an article I will read, talking a little bit about his contract. I'm going to kind of talk a lot Alvin Kamara today. Alvin Kamara, if you do not know, he's the Saints running back. Last season had one of his worst years of his career. I mean, it was almost not believable how bad he was. It was almost like it was a different Alvin Kamara. It was almost like a Todd Gurley. It was almost like a Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley, the season before that, was like unreal. Then last season was just like not the Todd Gurley we knew and most people really liked. It was not that Todd Gurley. It was not the Todd Gurley everybody knew and loved. It was the bad Todd Gurley, the Todd Gurley that could barely get 3, 5, 6 yards for his team. The Todd Gurley that was not the Todd Gurley that we are used to seeing. Let's just put it at that. So Alvin Kamara, same thing. Alvin Kamara, the year before last year, you could make the argument he was a top 5, top 3 running back in the NFL. You had, not last year, but the year before that, because Barkley, obviously, that was his second year. So you had Barkley, Kamara, McCaffrey, Elliott, Cook, kind of came on last season. You had Derrick Henry, although he really jolted out last season. That would be a little bit of a bold statement if 2 years ago you were telling me Derrick Henry's a top 5 running back. Now he is. 2 years ago, top 15, top 11, 10. I would have to really compare the stats and see what he was all about. Because in 2 years ago, he was like, he wasn't anything special. He was like, okay. He was very good, but is he top 10? Was he like a McCaffrey, a Kamara, a Barkley, an Elliott? Was he like one of them? I wouldn't so much go that far. Even Le'Veon Bell. 2 years ago, Le'Veon Bell Le'Veon Bell didn't play 2 years ago, but even the year before that, when, all of them were still in here, Le'Veon Bell was very good. But, there's a lot of good running backs on a lot of good teams. I know a lot of people would make some bold statements and go with some other running backs. I mean, you could even make the argument 2 years ago that LaShawn McCoy was a top 20, top 15 running back, top 20 maybe. That was kind of his last very good year with the Bills, and then obviously he got released, went to, the Chiefs, and now he's with the Buccaneers, and now he's going all over the place. So, Alvin Kamara, I would still consider him a top 10 running back in the league. Top 5, if a guy has an off year, I'm not going to still count him as a top 5. Top 5 takes special. Like, you have your top 10, and some players could barely slip into the top 10. That's why I really want to do my top 5 players of all time, but I do top 10 because I'm leaving out too much great skill. That's always one thing. It's either you do your top 5, each position is harder and harder. Because some positions, you do your top 5 and you're like, oh my gosh, this is the easiest top 5 ever. Like, these are the 5 players here. And then you try to do your top 10, you're like, oh my gosh. And then you really start to look at the numbers and you really start to look at who's on the thing. And you're like, oh no, this guy's not a top 10 quarterback. No, he is not. This guy's not a top 10 running back. And then you start to realize, well, that is a top 10 list. You get some guys that you would not even think on any day of the week that they are a top 10 player. And they are, in fact, a top 10 player. That's why I always say this. So, Alvin Kamara, I would say, is probably a top 8, top 9, top even 7, might be pushing a little bit player in the NFL. So, and I wouldn't so much say if he's a top 5 running back. I mean, maybe he is still a top 5 running back, but what he did last season was really bad. I mean, it was really bad. He really struggled last year, and I remember I do fantasy leagues. You all know that. By the way, I'll do my fantasy football league very soon. Actually, I'm still trying to find like 2 more people because I had 2 people leave. I'm trying to find 2 more people. I think I know who they are, but I just have to kind of confirm with them. But it's kind of funny because I had a fantasy league. I do too. I do one where I own and I'm in another one. So the other one, I remember I drafted Alvin Kamara first overall. I was like, wow. I dropped to me at like the 3rd pick. I expected somebody to take him at number 1, number 2. It dropped to me at the 3rd pick. I was either expecting McCaffrey or Kamara because I was either expecting Barkley and Elliott to go off the board, or Barkley and Kamara to go off the board, or Barkley and McCaffrey to go off the board, then hand me Kamara. I was expecting McCaffrey, actually, in a way, because McCaffrey had a good year the year before that, but last year he really broke out. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him fall back. As for Kamara as a top 5 running back during that draft, sure enough, he fell back to me. And I got him, and I was so happy. My team was stacked. I had Amari Cooper, Dak Prescott, Alvin Kamara, all those good players. Amari Cooper was injured last season. Kamara was obviously injured last season. My team kind of took a little bit of a dump in a way. I started off 3-0, finished I think 7-9, I think. Yeah, so it wasn't very good. But Kamara, this was big for the Saints. So a report came out that Kamara was playing all last season with a torn MCL. And this isn't surprising with athletes. I've said this so many times, over and over and over again. This is something that you should not be surprised when an athlete comes out and says he was injured a year after he had a horrible year. This is not a surprise. And it's not an excuse saying, oh, I tore my MCL. They play through it. They do. They all do. I shouldn't say a victim of it, because playing through an injury isn't a bad thing. I mean, I've always said, if you're injured, tell them, because you're actually hurting your team more if you're trying to play through an injury. As, I mean, obviously you got, guys behind you that could really make an impact, and here you are, injured, torn MCL. It was a tear nonetheless. It wasn't like it was I had like a grade 4 spring and stuff. It wasn't like it was like, or a sprain in my ankle or a sprain in my ankle that just wouldn't go away. It wasn't like that. That was a torn MCL. I mean, he tore something. Every player does this. Every player has done it before. Judge did it. If you want to talk about New York sports, Judge did it last season. Am I mad? No, I'm not mad. Every athlete does it because it's usually the passionate players that do it, I would say, so much, because it is the players that want to fight through it and want to play. It is not, I'm not telling you to go out there if you have elbow pain and go throw me 90 pitches. No, but some players just have that will and drive just to go out there and play. Is that a bad thing if you say, oh, I'm injured, coach, and I don't want to play anymore? No, but what I'm saying is some players just have a different thing about them where they just feel like they need to play through an injury. They feel like they are that big of an impact on the team. They feel like they could play through a torn MCL. Judge felt like he could play through a broken rib and a punctured lung. I mean, right? And that's why he struggled in the playoffs. I have a big theory on Judge has been injured a lot more than what has came out publicly, and that's why I'm pretty sure this year's, I think, if he stays healthy, hopefully he does, knock on wood, he's been able to stay healthy, or knock on table, whatever you want to say, he's been able to stay healthy. This is the true Judge. I think the past couple years he's been battling injuries on and off. I think his rookie year was the year that he had no injuries. Last season, I think that was one of his worst seasons with injuries. He had the wrist, then he had the punctured lung and the rib in the playoffs. He struggled a little bit. But I'll tell you what, and he still missed the vote. And he barely even played any games last season, and he still missed the vote by 0.1 vote to make the All-Star game? And he barely even played. His numbers were far off from making the All-Star game, and he barely even played. And it's just because people just know what you can do when you're healthy. They know what you're capable of. You've proven yourself already. Okay, I'm injured, but I've already proven myself. I could still get voted to this. But this is normal. This is normal. This is not anything that's new. So many players, and I feel like even more and 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 more players might do it. where they might just go ahead and say, hey, I'm injured, but I'm going to fight through it. I'm injured, but I'm going to fight through it. And it's not a bad thing. It does hurt the team. I mean, he hurt the Saints a little bit last season because of the way he was. He was not Alvin Kamara anybody expected him to do. If you told me Alvin Kamara last season would rush for barely any yards, would not have any impact on the Saints, wouldn't even make I don't even think he made the Pro Bowl, would do nothing like that, I would have thought you were crazy. I would have thought you were like, okay, Alvin Kamara might have the best running back year this year. I mean, you got McCaffrey and Barkley in front of him, but, still, he could very well have it. I mean, he's a top 10 running back, top 5 running back at that time in my book. So, Alvin Kamara really, really, really got beat up last season. He really did. And I know, and like I've said multiple times, more players are doing this. This is a very normal thing for a player to do. This is very normal. This isn't something that just came out yesterday and is brand new. Players play through injuries all the time. I mean, a player right now could be playing through an injury in MLB. Maybe it's a slight injury. They didn't tell anybody. Maybe it's a slight injury. Right? Maybe it's a slight injury. Right? Slight injury. It's a slight injury. Just slight. They could still be playing through it. Right? I mean, for example, you have, you could have, okay, maybe my ankle or something, or my foot, or even my arm, my throwing arm, or maybe even just my swing in a way. Whenever I swing, it hurts a little bit. Some players just don't say anything, and they say, oh, I'm going to still go out there and play. It isn't a bad thing. It could hurt you even more. I mean, who knows? Kamara could have said to them, hey, I'm injured, I'm not feeling great. They could have threw him back in and said, hey, all right, I'm better now, and then tore his MCL. Or he could have had a little bit of that pain, and then it progressively got worse and worse and worse, and at the end of the season, he realized he was playing through a torn MCL. That's what I'm always expecting. I'm almost expecting it now. After a player has a bad year, Gurley didn't have it, though. After a player has a bad year, I'm always expecting them to come out and say, okay, well, we had an injury. Because Judge came out and said it. He struggled last season in the postseason, all that. Had a punctured lung and a broken rib. I mean, I'm just going to tell it to you straight. And then you have Kamara now coming out and said, hey, I had torn ACL or a torn MCL, and, I just didn't play great. Now I'm better now. Right? A lot of players are doing it. It is a very common thing. Don't be surprised if a player on your team, that's why I was actually a little bit surprised by Le'Veon. Although that was the offensive line, though. That was the offensive line. Saints, same offensive line, same good team. Kamara just struggled. Same one with the Rams. Same offensive line, same good team. Gurley just struggled. Bell, brand new team, not the same offensive line, struggled. It's normal. Not injury, struggled. So, Alvin Kamara has said this offseason that he said that has a new diet and everything. Has a new diet and everything. So let's look at the stats. A lot of players, you see that now. They're changing their diets. Let's look at the stats. Let's look. So now there's already these rumors floating by already also about could Kamara possibly win, or could Kamara possibly, could this be his last season with the Saints now that his rookie contract's up? And, has he fulfilled all of it? I think he is. I think he has. He said he's not worried about his contract, but it will definitely get interesting. All right, so here we go. So last season he had 171 attempts, that's 25th in the league. 797 yards, that's 22nd in the league. 5 touchdowns, that's tied 26th. Average was 4.7, that's 13th. So his rushing last season, he played 14 games, 171 attempts. That's his lowest that was lower than 2018. 797 yards, lower than 2018 as well. 4.7 average, that was actually higher by 0.1. Touchdowns was lower. His long was lower. Fumbles were higher, which is bad. First downs was also lower. Now, he hasn't had a 1,000-yard season yet in his career, but he's also a big receiving back. He's a huge receiving back. He's one of the best receiving backs in all of the NFL. Receiving, on the other hand, I mean, he's had a 530. I mean, he had 97 targets, 6.6 average, 10 touchdowns throughout his career in receiving, as he is 27 in his rushing, which isn't far off. That's 17 off, but people, that's not that far off. That's really not that far off. So, to be honest, he is one of a more receiving back-ish in the league. I mean, I'll tell you what, I think he probably is one of the biggest receiving backs. Him and McCaffrey can do it both. But when Kamara can do both, when he can do receiving and rushing at the same time, insane. Last season, receiving, non-rushing. Okay. McCaffrey, same thing. Receiving and rushing at the same time, insane. Receiving, not really rushing, yeah. Or opposite. Or just, I mean, actually, rushing and not really receiving would actually be fine because that's what you expect out of a running back. It's for him to. I like receiving running backs because it actually helps out the quarterback a lot, and that's why we really like Le'Veon Bell with the Jets, because he's a receiving running back. He can run, sure, but he can run as well. But he's a big receiving back as well. I like receiving backs. It helps out the quarterback. It actually gives the team advantage in a way. It's almost like let's just say you're set up 4 wide receiver or 3 wide receivers with the tight end, so that's 4. It's almost like you have a 5th wide receiver, because he could run out and do stuff. Like, it's almost like it's unreal. Like a running back, a receiving back is just so helpful, because like throwing it to a non-receiving back is tough. Like let's just say you had a receiving back or didn't have receiving back, because it's a difference between, not every running back can go out there and just catch a ball and run upfield for 15 yards. They're running backs. Their job is to run, not receive. That's why I really think it's cool whenever you find a receiving back, because they can do both. They can do both receiving and running. So it's really cool. It's like they can do multi things, and that really helps out. It's almost like a receiving and a rushing back in the NFL is almost like and a blocking back is almost like a utility guy in the MLB. He can receive, he can rush, he can honestly block when you have 4-man out or whatever and you don't have anybody else back. He could block for you. In the MLB, he could play infield, he could play outfield. He could even play, or go by position-wise even. He could play third, he could play short, he could play second, he could play first, he could play right, left, center, right, or whatever. He could play infield, he could play outfield, he can even catch sometimes. It's almost like, in a way, running backs sometimes turn into a utility guys. They can block, they can receive, and they can do their thing that everybody expects them to do, and that is rush. So they could do 3 things that are very helpful for a team to win. As for a regular rushing back, they can rush and block. Receiving adds a whole nother element. And when he's on, he's almost like a Kamara or a McCaffrey in a way. He can receive, rush, both are insane. Not rush and receiving. Good rush, good receive, good block, perfect running back. So, big loss for the Saints, realizing last season that he was injured all the year. Because, I'm sure the Saints kind of kicked themselves in the butt too, because you could have put in your backup running back, which they did someplace. But Kamara stunk in fantasy. It was awful. It was awful. It was very bad in fantasy. He was putting up like 5 points a game, I think, which is bad for a running back. But to put that in perspective, running backs usually average in fantasy 11, 12, 13. He was averaging 5. So just put that in perspective. That's about 8 points lower than what he should and what I expected. Then the year before that, too, I had Kamara, and he absolutely was like the best player on my fantasy team. So I was like, all right. And my 2 running backs actually fell down the hill. I had Phillip Lindsay, who had a good year, fantasy-wise, not so good. It wasn't a big touchdown guy. Okay yards. He got me 6, 7 points a game. Kamara got me 5. My running backs were like bad last season in my one fantasy league. The one fantasy league that I came in 3rd place, that was the league. I came in 3rd place in that league. I had, who was my other running back? I forget. Oh, I think it was Leonard Fournette, and I traded for somebody else. Yeah, I think I traded Leonard Fournette. Or maybe I got rid of Edelman and Fournette for Godwin and Evans. Or no, I think I might have got rid of Fournette and Edelman for for Mike Evans, and then I think on waivers I picked up another running back, but I forget who it was. I remember last season I was switching running backs almost once a week because last season I had like a main running back, which was I think Philip Lindsay, and I had like other running back. Well, I actually had Saquon last season, but he was injured. That's the running back I had. So it was running back was Saquon and Lindsay, and then Fournette. And then if I got rid of Fournette a week later, I wouldn't have gotten rid of him. If he offered me if the other guy in my league offered me that deal a week later, I wouldn't have accepted it. I would have tried to get somebody else than Fournette. So I got rid of Fournette and then Edelman for Mike Evans, and then Barkley got hurt like a week later, and Philip Lindsay was my only running back, and Barkley was obviously out with the ankle injury for a couple of weeks. So then for those couple of weeks, I had James White, I had Sony Michel for a couple of games. I had some Lions running back that I picked up because all my running backs had a bye week. I was kind of bouncing around. Then Barkley came back. I was like, all right, I'm good. But yeah, running back position can get a little crazy because running back position is a very prone position to get an injury. And then all of a sudden you find yourself, like at the beginning of the year, it's like, oh my gosh, my running back core is insane. Philip Lindsay coming off of an unbelievable year. Saquon Barkley coming off of an unbelievable year. Could be the best running back in the league. Then you have them two either running back core. Then all of a sudden Lindsay goes down or for Barkley goes down. Lindsay's not producing so much. Lindsay's not producing as much as I expected him to do. Fournette goes down. Or for Fournette, I got rid of Fournette, which I'm actually kind of happy I did because he did not do anything for me last season. Got rid of Fournette. It was my receiving core that helped me the most last year. It was my receiving core because I had Godwin, Evans, my tight end, I forget who that was, or Evan Ingram, I think my tight end was. It was my receiving and tight end that just helped me. And then I obviously had quarterback in Mahomes. But it was kind of funny because I'll talk about this really quickly and then we'll get into the Pac-12. What happened last season was I got Godwin in one of the final rounds of the draft. When I got Godwin, I was using him in a way as trade bait. Like, I got him, I was like, okay, this is an receiver that I could maybe, use this as trade bait for some other players. Because in the fantasy football draft, when you get to the later rounds, all the players left on the board are not players that are going to make a huge impact. I got Godwin, I think, to the second to last round of the draft because I just needed one more receiver. I was like, all right, I could trade bait, do stuff like this, maybe if I, because I found out, some other players on my team, or some other players in the league could have had this guy. I was like, all right, I could use trade bait. And all of a sudden, I got Godwin. I was like, all right, I started him 1 week. I started him, I think, like week 2. All of a sudden, he was my every week starter. It was unreal. All of a sudden, Godwin is my everyday starter. And Godwin absolutely tore it up for me, one of the best players on my fantasy team. A guy that I picked in the beginning of the season to possibly be trade bait. He was all of a sudden probably my best receiver. It was just crazy. And that's why now I know, hey, whoever you pick in draft, that's why I hold off. I've always done this. Hold off until trading until week 2. Because, after week 2 or even week 3, you get a good thing of all right, this guy's good, this guy's bad, this guy's right? So, yeah. So, anyway, Alvin Kamara, I think he'll have a bounce back year. I really do. I think he'll have one of the biggest bounce back years of any player in the league right now. And I just think he's just going to have a fascinating, better year. I think he's going to be motivated to come back after last season's bad year. People thought about trading him. I think he's kind of motivated in a way, and I think people just want to see him again be the old Alvin Kamara we are all used to seeing. So Pac-12 cancels fall 2020 college football season, aims to play in spring 2021. Talk about that coming up next. Alrighty. So Pac-12 cancels their college football season, which is pretty bad, given that, you had a ton of players from the Pac-12 want to play. You had a ton of players from the Big Ten want to play. or not Big Ten. Or yeah, Big Ten. Big Ten also. Big Ten officially canceled yesterday. I talked about the Big Ten yesterday, though, about how they already. I mean, they canceled 2 days ago, but it was official. They had to make it, official. So they canceled yesterday. And I know, and I want to make this clear. I get it that I understand that the health and safety of the players are at their top priority, right? At the top priority. I mean, and that's and not even just the player, not even just the players, the coaches, the training staff, especially the training staff, actually, because they're the ones going out there with the players. They're the ones who could possibly be working with the player, helping a player off the field who has the virus. So especially the training staff, everybody who's at the game on the sidelines during every week. The health and safety of all of them. I shouldn't just say the players because that leaves everybody else out. That leaves the coaches out, the trainers out, whoever else is there, the cameramen, even the cameramen. They could very well get it too. And I know I might sound outrageous right now, but they could very well get it too. I just want to make this clear. The health and safety of the players, the coaches, the training staff, the cameramen, even the cameramen. I know, the refs, even the refs, are at the top priority. Of especially the players, and I kind of want to make that clear, especially the players, because they're the one. You can't play a game without the players. So you don't. All these players get wiped out by the virus. You can't play. And also, and I know it's airborne and stuff like that, but you also got to realize too that these players are making a lot of contact. The guys, people on the sideline, it's also your outdoor stuff. It's harder to get it when you're outdoors. So if you get it, when you're out there and you're standing social distance on the sideline, it's not the worst thing in the world. But the Pac-12 canceled, and there's one school that I'll root for and stuff like that. It's a Colorado Buffalo, so the Colorado, and they on the Twitter page yesterday, because I have an app called Bleacher Report, and on Twitter page today they had their Colorado Buffaloes thing, and then saying we want to play, which is like a little thing that is going around college football. Everybody's doing it. It's called We Want to Play. It's pretty much a thing where it's just the players saying we want to play, don't cancel the season. And now all of a sudden, Pac-12 canceled the season. So obviously these league presidents and things like that aren't really listening to what these teams, players, coaches are saying. Coaches are even saying it. Coaches are saying it. Coaches have said multiple times, we want to play. We want to play. I know maybe you don't, but we do. And we're the ones who are playing too. I think it really, and I'm kind of to this point too, it kind of should be up on the coaches and the players, because they're the ones who are putting themselves at risk. If they go out there, they're the ones who are putting themselves at risk. It's not the university's presidents or the team presidents. Team presidents ain't going to be on the sidelines. You kidding me? They ain't going to be on the sidelines. And that's where that's where it's tough to cancel the college football season, because these players also have worked so hard. Trevor Lawrence now projected to be the number one pick. If the ACC will probably now play, but let's just say the ACC doesn't play, is he the first pick? Because you don't know what he looked like this season. And so many of these players have worked so hard to get to this point. Some of these players, and they're going to try to play in the spring, but, you also don't realize how many players are really going to play in the spring. You might get some players that are just no, I'm done. I'm quitting. I'm done. Spring football just sounds stupid. I mean, I'm not talking about, spring football in general. Playing college football in the spring, then that's going to mess up years to come. Then you play in the spring, then what? Next season you can't play until the spring again? You're not going to get a proper off season. So, Pac-12 cancels fall 2020 college football season, aims to play in the spring. And, like I said, I'm not going to say if this is a right or wrong decision. It's all, all of our opinions. I do believe, the teams that want to play, they play. And you figure out a schedule from there. The conferences that, because now all of a sudden, and this is really what's gone into a mess now, too. Here's a big mess, too, is these players, or some of these teams, Nebraska, even, I think, actually Iowa and stuff, since they were the two team presidents that said they don't want to play, they now might be joining other conferences just to play this fall. So now what? Other teams are going to join them. Then what's going to be the Big Ten and the Pac-12? What's going to be the Big Ten and the Pac-12 in the spring? Let's hear it. If the Nebraska and Iowa already played a season, and some of these other teams already played a season, then what's going to be the Big Ten? 3 teams, and the Pac-12 going to be 3 teams? That's useless. If you're going to cancel, just don't start up in the spring. Just cancel and just start up next season. And I shouldn't so much say it's useless because I when spring football comes around, I'm sure I would be like, oh yeah, spring football. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like in a way, I think it's up to the play. I know it's up to the league presidents, and they really believe this is the best thing to do. But in a way, too, I think the players should have something saying it too, because obviously the players believe they're safe. They believe the protocols are in line. I mean, even Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields said it. Couldn't think of his name for a second. Justin Fields said it. They even said too, the health and protocols are very, very good. The guidelines are very, very good. They said it's in place. They said that it's very good, very organized, nothing wrong with it. We could play. Come back 3 steps, you can't play. So, Pac-12 cancels as well. And now Pac-12, Big Ten, the MAC conference is also canceled. Those are the D1. So 2 Power 5 conferences are out. So what is it? The 3 Power 5 now? So the Power 5 conferences, 2 of them has out. So now it's the Power 3 conferences are remaining. And it's tough for I think the players too, especially some of these players that it's seniors and stuff like that, because not every conference they're going to play in the spring, I'm pretty sure. And I said this before. Did I not say this on my podcast? I literally came on the podcast and said, after Princeton after Ivy League, all those teams canceled, I literally said, conferences, teams, universities are going to continue to cancel things. Pac-12 canceled all fall sports. So you won't even see basketball in the Pac-12. You won't even see any of that. Canceled all fall, winter sports. They even canceled basketball. So you won't even see basketball until 2021 for the Pac-12. So I'm an ACC fan. I like Miami. So I'm glad I'm still hanging on to a little bit of a rope. I guess there's a little bit of I'm still hanging on to a string of it. I'm still hanging on to a string of something. I don't know what. I'm still hanging on. The ACC still hanging on and hopeful for a season as Pac-12 Big Ten goes down. And it really is tough. Like when you hear one by one it goes down, because every division goes down, that's 14 more teams. One division go down, 14 more teams. 14 more teams. 14 more teams. It's crazy. Like, it's not, when you think of one conference, all right, it's just one conference. Yeah, it's one conference, but how many players, how many teams, 14 teams, coaches, players, all them. When you think of, only one conference, only 2 conferences, well, that's 28 teams, plus each player on the team. That's a lot of stuff that's being canceled. It ain't just the conference. The player season's getting, that's a lot. Like you might think, it's only one conference. Well, one conference involves 28, or 2 conferences, 28 teams, coaches, players, all that stuff. Pretty bad. So Pac-12 cancels fall 2020 college football season, aims to play in spring 2020. Tuesday afternoon meeting with the conference presidents and chancellors led to the Pac-12 deciding to cancel its fall 2020 season and postpone all fall sports through the calendar year amid the COVID-19 pandemic. The move comes after the Big Ten elected to cancel its fall season earlier on Tuesday. Both conferences hope to play this season in spring 2021, but have not announced any specific plan. All the Pac-12 presidents and chancellors understand the importance of this decision and the disappointment it will create for our student athletes, the coaches, support staff, and all of our fans, said Oregon President Michael H. Shilley. Ultimately, our decision was guided by science and a deep commitment to the health and welfare of the student athletes. We certainly hope the Pac-12 will be able to return to competition in the new year. We want more college football. No, never mind. The health and safety and the well-being of our student athletes and all those connected to the Pac-12 sports have been our number one priority since the start of this current crisis, said Pac-12 Commissioner Larry Scott. Our student athletes, fans, staff, and all those who love college sports would like to have seen the season played this calendar year and originally planned, and we know how disappointing this is. The Pac-12's vote was unanimous, and it was made after consultation with athletic directors, and with the Pac-12 COVID-19 Medical Advisory Committee, who expect concern with moving forward with contact sports. Athletes will have their scholarships guaranteed while also receiving university support, including academic, advising, and tutoring, among other support services. The Pac-12 is also urging the NCAA to grant those athletes an additional year of eligibility. Not even just canceling, not even just does it affect college sports, it affects the draft. It affects the NFL all of a sudden. So now the NFL has to go into a mode where they might have to reschedule the draft. Because the Pac-12 ain't no no-name conference. There's going to be a lot of good players come out of the Pac-12. So you're now going to be, now the draft might have to get postponed. The NFL draft might have to get postponed. It can make things very interesting. Very interesting. Now the draft's all of a sudden in jeopardy. So one by one, things are getting interesting. Unlike professional sports, college sports cannot operate in a bubble, Scott said. Our athletic programs are a part of a broader campuses in communities where in many cases our prevalence of COVID-19 is significant. We will continue to monitor the situation, and when conditions change, we will be ready to explore all options to play the impacted sports in the new calendar year. Sentiment throughout college football entering Sunday night was that the Big Ten and Pac-12 would cancel their season this week. However, the combination of outspoken coaches and the hashtag We Want to Play, especially we are movement have developed. Suddenly, late Sunday seemed to give the pause for the 5 major conferences. While the Big Ten's coaches were outspoken, this is a long article. Actually, it's actually not that bad. It's actually pretty long. I will probably read a little bit more because we're already, 41 minutes. While the Big Ten coaches were outspoken about wanting to play, the Pac-12's coaches were largely silent. Perhaps that is because the league's coaches' athletic directors were reportedly given eye-opening information Monday evening from Pac-12 doctors, specifically regarding myocarditis, a heart condition that can develop as a result of battling the coronavirus. The condition involves an inflammation of the heart muscle. It can reduce the heart's ability to pump, causing rapid and or abnormal heartbeat. Yeah, I did hear about that. That's, I think, with anybody. I think that's with everybody who gets it, or some people you could get it. It's dependent, I guess, however your body is. I'm not 100% though. Like I said, I've always said this. I don't like to talk too much about injuries or problems, or injuries or something, like the virus or anything, because I don't know much about it. Like injuries, I don't know much about it. Like I don't know much about injuries. I know you could say, well, research more about them, but I'm not really like interested in that kind of stuff. I'm interested in like sports and stuff, like injuries and stuff. Like I've always gave credit to the people who know all these injuries. Like even like injuries, like when you have a problem, like they're like, oh yeah, we could easily fix this. Like what is even the problem? Like I'm even to the point, like what is even the problem? Like, how in the world do you, like, it's actually very crazy to me. Though COVID-19 has had previously been linked to longer-lasting heart complications, the medical advice given to Pac-12 decision-makers was apparently enough to lead them to pull the plug on playing this fall. Myocarditis emerged as a significant health concern that largely led to the Big Ten's decision, according to CBS Sports' Dennis Dodd. At least 15 Big Ten players had been left with a myocarditis after contracting COVID-19, according to a high-ranking source within the Big Ten. Myocarditis is the ball game right now, the source told. Myocarditis is a major issue they are looking at between the Pac-12 and the Big Ten. That's what is really driving the push this off to the spring. In its latest medical guidelines, the NCAA said infected persons of any ages underlying heart conditions are a risk. There's at least one Power 5 school where athletes who tested positive for the coronavirus automatically get an EKG. The Big 12 Commissioner Bob Bowlesby told the Associated Press on Sunday that they were given growing advice and concern over myocarditis. Medical experts have told West Virginia's athletic director Shane Lyons that moving to the spring will give us more time to able to understand the virus does really impact the heart. Recovering from the myocarditis can vary anywhere from a few weeks to a few months, according to Harvard Medical School. The Big Ten, 4 weeks. Big Ten, 4 weeks was considered the most likely to punt on football in the fall. The Pac-12 was viewed as a conference to its hip. If the Big Ten canceled or even delayed the start of the football season, the Pac-12 likely wasn't far behind. That played out Tuesday. It's kind of funny that they're like punt the football season away. It's true. Likely punt on the football season. Well, like I said, it's, the health and safety of the players are at the top priority. And as a fan, it stinks, but I guess at the end of the day, you do realize that, health and safety are at the players. And players want to play, but players are also putting themselves at risk. That's why I really believe, in a way, the players should choose, because some of them are putting their themselves at risk. If they're okay with that, I don't want to sound like forcing them, but some players are okay, obviously, with going out there and playing during a pandemic. Some players are. Some players are. So we just got a little bit more here to go. Will the three other Power 5 conferences follow the suit with their canceling their fall 2020 season? The SEC and ACC appear prepared to move forward, while the Big 12 is currently in limbo. Through cancellations have been taking place all levels of college football. Only recently did they affect 130 FBS teams, 130 team FBS. UConn was the first FBS team to call curtains on the fall 2020 season last week. UMass followed suit on Tuesday. The MAC was the first FBS conference to call off playing fall sports. It was joined by the Mountain West on Monday. Old Dominion on Monday became the first individual member of the FBS conference. Conference USA and to cancel its season. More than 30 Power 5 players have opted out of playing this season. There are now 77 of the 130 FBS teams, 59% set to play 2020 college football this season. So 59% is it's not, 41% away from 100%, so it wouldn't be great, but 59%. So a college football season is going to be interesting, to say the very least, and that is to say the very least. And you might see now the ratings, I don't know. Very interesting. Had a sneeze. I held it in, though. All right, so let's get up the Yankees games. So the Yankees won last night. They won. Mets lost. What more has to be said? Of course the Mets are going to lose. That's just how the Mets are. Of course they're going to lose. So the Yankees won. They had 9 runs, 6 hits, 2 errors. Braves had 6 runs, 8 hits, 2 errors. The Yankees had 9 runs, 6 hits, 2 errors. I know I already said that. Just wanted to say it again. Just go over one more time. LeMahieu went 2 for 2, or 2 at bat. He won 1 for 2, 2 runs and 2 walks. Judge went 1 for 2, 2 runs, 1 walk, and an RBI. He had a home run, 9th of the season. Talk went 0 for 1 with a walk. Hicks went 1 for 3 with 3 runs and a walk. Voit went 1 for 3 with a run and 3 RBIs. He had the 3-run shot in. He had the 3-run shot in the first inning of yesterday's game, which was big. Took us in the lead. Wade went 0 for 0. Torres went 0 for 2 with a run and 2 walks. Ford went 2 for 4 with no walks, 3 RBIs. Ford had 2 doubles. Unbelievable. Played very well. Urshela went 0 for 4. Sanchez went 0 for 4. Gardy went 0 for 4. Montgomery pitched 6 innings, 4 hits, 3 earned, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. David Hale, which a third, 2 hits, 1 earned, no walks, 1 strikeout. Ottavino went 2/3, 0 2/3. 0 hits, 0 earned, 1 walk, 1 strikeout. Sessa went 0 1/3, 2 hits, 1 earned, no walks, no strikeouts. Green went 0 2/3, 0 hits, 0 earned, 0 walks, 1 strikeout. And Britton went 1 inning, 0 runs, 0 hits, 0 runs, 0 walks, 1 strikeout. So the Yankees win. They move to 11-6 on the season. I give them the win again tonight. Continue that momentum as they try to continue to do things. So the Mets are lost again yesterday as well to the Nationals. They moved to 7-11. The Mets fall to 7-11. The Nationals had 2 runs, 9 hits, no errors. Mets had 1 run, 7 hits, no errors. Pretty bad for the Mets. I say the very least. So Nimmo went 0 for 2 with 2 walks. McNeil went 1 for 4. Davis went 2 for 4. Conforto went 1 for 4. Dom Smith went 0 for 3 with a walk. Ramos went 0 for 4. Jimenez went 1 for 4 with a run scored. Guerrero went 2 for 3 with a RBI. Billy Hamilton went 0 for 2. Alonso went 0 for 1. Rick Porcello pitched 6 innings, 8 hits, 2 earned, no walks, 5 strikeouts. Hughes went 2 innings, no hits, no earned, no walks, 1 strikeout. Diaz went 1 inning, 1 hit, no earned, no walks, 2 strikeouts. So the Mets, I give them another loss today. Although the Nationals didn't play great as well, it just still so it goes to show you, like his still lost as well. I mean, the Yankees. Let me go back to this. I mean, the Yankees again scored 6 hits and 9 runs. Like, oh my jeez. So the Islanders play today, I'm pretty sure. Yes, they play today against the Capitals. I'm going to give the Capitals a win. I think the Capitals are one of my Stanley Cup favorites to win it all. Capitals will close. I think the Capitals will actually probably win this game, although I think it's very close. I think the Capitals probably will win. So that's what I got there. So anyway, so that's what I got for the podcast today. Crazy hockey game. I talked about it earlier. Crazy hockey game. But anyway, enjoy the day. Hopefully you all have a good rest of your day. I'll see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.